The two most important historical buildings in Arles in the south of France are the ancient Roman arena, 2,000 years old, and a medieval church, 1,000 years old. In this episode, we'll appreciate the art and architecture of the church. Well, the main structure on this square is behind me. It's the Church of San Trofim. And the facade of this church is the UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a very important facade. It's from the Romanesque period, so it dates back to the 11th and 12th centuries. And what we have depicted are various scenes from the Bible. In particular, there's the Last Judgment. So we have Christ in the top center, and on your left side, we have the good souls who are being sent to heaven. And on the right side, not so lucky, the bad folks on their way down to hell. Along with that, we've got the apostles. You see along the row right below the Christ, we have the apostles. Alongside Christ are the evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And there's just a lot going on. There's St. Stephen here. You'll see the gargoyles, the devils, bringing the tormented souls down into hell. So it's just really a remarkable structure, all in all. It's a mix of Romanesque and Gothic, and then later Gothic, High Gothic. So it's 12th century, right up through the 15th century on the interior. San Trofim. There was an earlier church on the same site dating back to the 5th century, and even as far back as the year 250, according to legend, Trophimus of Arles became the first bishop of the area, and this church was subsequently named after Trophimus. He became St. Trophime, and his relics were installed in the new cathedral here around the year 1152.
This area is all Gothic, the ambulatory. It's late Gothic. It's almost a flamboyant Gothic. You see the curvatures there. That was the late Gothic was called flamboyant, as in flames, as in the flicker of a flame of a candle. Curvatures. Oh, that is such a beautiful chapel. This was added in the 15th century. So the life of the church continued, the construction went on for about 400 years. And yet the different styles blend beautifully together. It just fits. It's this evolution, this progress from the early Romanesque to the latest Gothic.
Typical of the Romanesque style, the walls are quite thick and solid, with small windows high up in the nave, above the level of the aisles. Of course, during the nearly 1,000-year history of this building, there have been many subsequent additions, and there's works of art that were installed during the Renaissance period, and later on you've got paintings and tapestries and sculptures and various reliquaries and side chapels and smaller altars with magnificent architectural details on the tops of the columns and distributed throughout the church. Several side chapels are decorated in the Baroque style from the 17th century with large oil paintings and gilded wooden frames with the open pediments on top.
This is a sarcophagus, an ancient tomb. It was a coffin, sarcophagus, and now it's used as a baptismal font. Somehow they can have access to it, and it's a baptismal font.
It's believed that the apse and transept of the church were built in the late 11th century, and the nave and bell tower were added later, completed in the second quarter of the 12th century. You want to be sure to go outside and around the corner into the cloister. It's like an open-air museum with architecture and sculpture that spans a 300-year period. Cloisters are always rewarding and peaceful places to visit. There's a meditative and prayerful atmosphere in a cloister like this. Anytime you see a cloister with the columns and the arcades surrounding an open square, you know that this had been at one time a residence of the clergy, perhaps a residence of nuns or priests, somebody associated with the church. Generally would be living upstairs, but it's rare to find a cloister such as this one that is so intricately decorated. The top of each column is carved, and some of the columns are really impressive works of art in themselves. Midway along there's a major column, and then each of the smaller columns have elaborate capitals. Some of the arches are rounded, as you see here, and others are pointed, reflecting the different time periods. And in fact, this cloister is generally considered to be the most important cloister in all of Provence. And it's so easy to overlook it because it has an unmarked doorway. You'd never even know it's here unless you've studied up a little bit in your guidebooks or watching this video or heard about it somehow. It's the corner columns that are really the most spectacular of all in the Cloister of St-Trophime. There's a statue of St. Paul. That's one of the really important art masterpieces in here. Here's some of the detailed corner statues with relief scenes. And there are some other scenes of daily life as well carved into the galleries of the cloisters.